Hello and welcome to the video for Wood and Paper Investigations 1 and 2, Getting to Know Wood and Changing Wood. Here's a list of the student learning outcomes for Investigation 1. Here are the student learning outcomes for Investigation 2. Both of these lists can also be found on the BPS Science Weebly website. Here are the science and engineering practices that are most prominent in these investigations. 1. Asking questions and defining problems. Students will begin to think about the connection between trees, wood, and many of the objects around them. Perhaps with some teacher prompting, students will also begin to ask questions about using wood as a material for building. 3. Planning and carrying out investigations. While these investigations are designed to be set up and planned for the students, there is a good amount of wiggle room for you to incorporate this practice in your teaching. 4. Analyzing and interpreting data. Parts 4 and 5 of Investigation 1 involve trying to sink wood. Students will collect data about how many paper clips are needed to sink a piece of wood. This activity also incorporates Practice 5, using mathematical and computational thinking. Here are some of the questions you might want to incorporate in your class science journals. This list can be found in the Duplication Masters tab of your curriculum guide. There are 5 parts to Investigation 1. For Part 1, students will observe and compare different kinds of wood included in the FOSS kit. In Part 2, students will walk around the classroom, school, or even the neighborhood in search of objects made of wood. They will place sticky labels on these objects. In Part 3, students will observe how wood and water interact by placing drops of water on different kinds of wood and immersing wood in basins of water. In Part 4, students will use a rubber band and paper clips to sink a piece of pine and plywood. Investigation 5, Sinking Investigation, is labeled as optional in the curriculum guide. While it is very similar to Investigation 4, I highly recommend including 5 in your practice. It has a platform for helping students build on prior knowledge to make predictions. I have also marked lessons that you might want to take outside with a star. The wood samples in this unit can easily get mixed up, and it can be confusing trying to sort them back out for the next teacher that uses your kit. It is recommended in the handbook that you color code each wood sample by placing a small dot on the end of the wood block. You should also mark the bag they are stored in, just in case. Instead of using paper and glue or tape for the questions and labels in this unit, I find that printing them on sticker labels saves a lot of time. You can buy labels at any office supply store and use a template that corresponds with the labels you purchase. There are a few investigations that require using water with wood. I recommend bringing these activities outside if possible to reduce spilling in the classroom and make cleanup a breeze. The wood and paper kit has a number of clear basins that you can use to store wood for this unit. If you would like to incorporate the wood and paper unit into other parts of the K2 daily curriculum, you could leave a few samples of wood in the classroom to enhance the block area or construction center. Finally, before you send the FOSS kit back to the science department, please make sure the wood and other materials are organized and completely dry. Here's a list of the 4 parts for Investigation 2. For Part 1, students will use sandpaper to change the shape of basewood. In Part 2, students will compare sawdust and shavings. Then they will mix them with water and try to separate out the shavings. Part 3 involves mixing sawdust with a cornstarch matrix to make particle board. Finally, in Part 4, students will glue thin strips of wood together and make plywood. These investigations can be very messy, so please plan accordingly for cleanup after each lesson. While we will not be doing any dangerous work in this unit, it is important to lay the foundation for working in a science lab. There are a few investigations where children will be working with sawdust and wood shavings, so I would suggest using gloves, goggles, and masks, if you can, during these parts. The gloves will protect students' hands while they are using sandpaper to change the shape of wood. The sandpaper used might be a little bit coarse and could cause minor scrapes to the more industrious woodworkers. Goggles will prevent sawdust and particles from entering the students' eyes. Finally, using masks during this investigation is particularly important if you're working with a population of students with asthma. Dust particles can be easily inhaled and cause minor breathing problems. Here are some resources that I like to use with these investigations. The first one is the website found on FOSS-Web. It provides examples of different kinds of wood and shows how they are used in industry. The other two, Redwoods by Jason Chin and Tell Me Tree by Gail Gibbons, are two engaging and informative books I like to read.